Okay, so this one is gonna be a tutorial on Windows 10, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you just the basics as far as how to be able to use it and how to be able to navigate. So the first thing over here, if we look at it, this is the desktop, and at the bottom over here, this is what is called a panel, and over here is the menu. So if you click on this, you get by default they have a few icons over here that you can click, and it'll take you somewhere. So also by default the browser is a Microsoft Edge, but as you see here I have different web browsers which I have actually installed, and you can actually replace the web browser if you want. So okay, so over here on top is the recycle bin. This is where your trash goes when you delete anything. It'll go ahead and be moved over here. So if you wanted to permanently delete something, then you have to empty the recycle bin, and after that it's gone. Over here, if you see this is the task view. You can add a new desktop if you want. So if you want desktop 1, desktop 2, of course you can add more than that. If you click on it and you add another one, you got another desktop. So the reason why multiple desktops are used is, for example, let's say you're working on something over here. So let's go ahead and open up something like Notepad. So to search for things, just type in here in this white section here, and just it should come up. Okay, so let's say we're working on something over here, but you want to go ahead and do something else. Let's say you want to browse your the internet, but you don't want to be distracted by the other application that is open. So let's say Notepad, for example. So what it'll do is it'll go ahead and in this desktop it'll only show the browser that is open, but if we go over here and then we switch, then we can go back to this open application and vice versa. So then if you have another one over here, you can add another application and you can be working on this desktop with something else. So this is very useful when you're doing a lot of multitasking. Let's say you're at work and you're doing something, and but then you want to go ahead and let's say you're working on Excel or something, and then you want to go ahead and go to your browser and search for something. So you can open another desktop and do it like that. But that's purely optional. You can always do everything on one desktop, but a lot of times that can get cluttered. So that's one of the reasons why multiple desktops are there. So this one over here, this is for your folders or your file explorer. So this will take you to your I guess your home, or yeah, I guess it would be called a home. And in here you have folders that you frequently use, and then recent files. And over here you have the different what is called a tree, and if you click on these they'll drop and you can navigate through them. So let's say you want to find something on your actual PC, you go to this PC, and then in here on local C you can search for whatever. So if you want like a program file that you installed but you want to go ahead and delete, or whatever the case may be, you can do that. So if you have different users, you can navigate and use the locate the other user that you want to be using. Okay, so some of the settings, to go to the settings, let's say you want to change a couple things in here. To get to that, you can just click over here on this icon, the Windows icon, and then go to settings. Or you can let's see this one, when we right click and if we click on display settings. So this is, I find this to be easier if you just right click and then go to display settings, and then in here, okay, so here we are in the settings. So in here you have many different settings. The first one is to customize your display. So if you want to change the size of text, apps, and other items, it says 100% recommended, so I'm gonna leave it at that. So we're not really gonna mess around with these. You have advanced display settings in case you wanna mess around with it. However, the display settings by default should be fine. Notification and actions in here, these, you have the quick actions, You have also notifications in case you want to be notified. So here it says show me tips about Windows. You can leave that on. I don't really need those, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on it so it'll be off. Show app notification, I also don't need that. Show notifications on the lock screen, show alarms. Then after that, if you go to apps and features, in here you can it's gonna take a little bit of time to upload all the apps that are installed on your actual system. So you can search in here by name if you want, sort by size, and show apps on all drives in case you have more than one drive. Okay, so here we go. So these are all the installed apps on your actual system. More than likely you didn't install all of these. What happens is when you install Windows 10, it actually went ahead and installed a lot of these. So if for some reason you don't want something like, let's say I don't want the store, I can click on that and then I can I'm not too sure if it's going to allow me to uninstall. There's some applications that you're not allowed to uninstall by default. So I think either if you're on, you have to be under administrative, or you have to find different ways to be to uninstall it. But this is mostly where you would uninstall some of these. So maps, I think you might be able to uninstall. Let's see. Looks like it's not allowing me for some reason. Let's see. Kit Office, yeah, you can uninstall this one. OneNote. So anyway, some of these like Xbox, no, still not allowing me to uninstall that one. Okay, so this one we're gonna go ahead and uninstall this sports. So that's it. You uninstall it. Weather, and not allowed. Of course, you can always go through control panel and uninstall, but some of these apps are not going to show up in the control panel. So this is one of the easiest ways to find out all the apps and be able to uninstall from your actual system. Okay, so multitasking. Let's click on that. Okay, so Snap. It says arrange windows automatically by dragging them. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave that. Virtual desktops. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and leave those, and then virtual desktops basically like these would be the desktops here. So you definitely want those on. So we're gonna leave all that. Tablet mode. If you're using a tablet, you probably want to go ahead and enable that. I'm using a computer as far as desktop, so I don't need that. But if you're using a tablet, you can go ahead and mess around with that. Power and sleep. It says when plugged in, turn off later every 10 minutes, but you can always change to whatever you want. You can check the additional power settings. Okay, so in the additional power settings over here, we have more options. For example, you can do power saver, and then you can change the plan settings. You can also show additional ones. So this is for high performance. More than likely you don't want this unless you have a lot of RAM, and if you're gonna be doing things like video editing, graphic designing, as far as like Photoshop and things like that. Otherwise, or gaming. Other than that, just to do basic things, you don't really need high performance. So alright, so then after that, storage. This will show you your actual storage first, the hard drive that you have installed. If you have more than one, it should show you all that. So offline maps, this I'm not too familiar with, but you can look into that, see what the deal is. Default apps, this is important here. For example, if you see here, it says choose a calendar as far as defaults. All the default applications, like if you want an email manager, for example, Mozilla Thunderbird or Outlook or whatever, you can always choose the default here, and as you see, it'll give me. So I'm gonna go ahead and use SeaMonkey. So that's it. So if you want a different music player, for example, like let's say Windows Media Player, you want it to be your default, you can click on that. I don't think I have installed VLC yet, so but more than likely that's what I'm gonna go ahead and use as my default. Photo viewer, you can do the same thing. Browser, if you want to change the browser, if you have more than one browser, By default it's Microsoft Edge. I install Firefox, or let's say you installed and I also have SeaMonkey in there as well, but let's say you install Chrome or Opera or whatever other browser, or even Firefox. To be able to change it as far as for it to be default every single time, um, without having to click on add as default, you can just come over here to default apps and choose it, and that's it. And that's it. The about is about your actual computer system. So alright, if you go back over here in the actual settings, the main settings menu, you will find a ton of other stuff. So if you go to your accounts, if you want to change a couple things in your accounts, or you want to open up somebody else, you want to open up a new account, you can go in here and mess around with these. Sync your settings, you can mess around with these. We're not going to mess around with that. Update and security, if you want to look at all this, if you want to use Window Defender, I always turn off Window Defender because, I mean, this might be some misinformation that I got, but mostly Windows Defender is not as good as it should be. So if you want something to protect your computer, you might want to go ahead and use a real what do you call it, a real malware or virus protection software. So in here you can also do backup, recovery if you want, and activation. And at the bottom you have here for developers. So it says don't use developers features. However, if you think you're good enough to be able to mess around with some of the developers options, you can always click on this here, and then it's going to be under developer mode. So if you don't know anything like coding and stuff like that, I would not recommend to do these things because you could harm the system. So a couple other things in here, such as privacy. If you want to change some of that, nowadays this is a big deal as far as privacy. You always want to make sure that your privacy is safe, so you want to really look into this and make sure that you change the privacy according to what you want. So like for example, if you see, I turned off a lot of these, even though this is just an example. This is actually on VirtualBox. It's an instance that I installed. It's not on my actual system, but by default it's always best practice to go into your privacy settings and look around and see what you want to allow and what you don't want to allow. So for example, here it says let apps use my advertising ID for experience across apps. I click that off because I don't want apps to have that access. Turn on smart screen filters to check web content. I also turn that off. Send Microsoft information about what I type, so I also turn that off. And let websites provide locally relevant content by accessing my language list. This one's not so important, but I still click that off. You can read more about it in here. If you want to also disable location, for example, if you leave location on, or if you want to change location, you can always change that. But if you leave location on, for example, apps will have access to your location, and that could be a bad thing. Especially, let's say you download an app that you don't know, it could have access to your location, and through your location be able to find out a lot of things such as your IP and things like that. So camera, if you want to let apps use your camera, and in here you can choose which apps allow your camera. So I'm not using Microsoft Edge, so I'm gonna click that off. I don't want to use Microsoft Photos. I don't want OneNote. Windows Maps I don't use. In App Connector I'm gonna leave that on, but these are purely optional. Microphone also very important if you want to allow certain applications to use it, like Microsoft Edge. I'm not gonna use Xbox. I'm not gonna use Windows Voice Recorder, and I'm not gonna use Windows Photos. So for speech, inking and typing, this one, if I think this is the for the Cortana. Let's see, Windows, yeah, this is Cortana. So basically you can set up your computer where you can actually just talk into it. Like over here it says learn more about speech, so you can actually talk to your computer, and it's gonna use Cortana to be able to do the searches for you and be able to give you that information. This is a little bit more advanced, so I'm not going to get into it, but the option is there. Account info. Okay, this one's to let apps access my phone, pictures, and other. I mean my name, pictures, and other account info. So I want that to be off by default. Contacts. You can also choose apps that can access contacts. So like mail and calendar, I don't need it. Windows Shell Experience, I don't need that. I'm gonna leave this one there. Calendar over here, let apps use my calendar. I don't care about that. So, and quite a few other ones. I'm not gonna go through all of them. I think those were the most important ones. So, ease of access. You got time and language accounts, which we already covered. Personalization to change backgrounds and stuff. Network and internet. This is also very important. So, in here, if you want to use a VPN, you can just come in here and just quickly add a VPN. This is more advanced, but if you know what I'm talking about, then you can just come over here and just start using your VPN. If for some reason you're still using dial-up, you can come in here and use dial-up, but more than likely you're not. Ethernet, if you want to tweak your Ethernet, so if you see here, it'll show Ethernet network, so you can click on that and then be able to mess around with these. Proxy, if you know how to use proxy, you can also come in here and be able to change the proxy settings. And also over here we got something for devices, for connected devices, stuff like that. I'm not gonna go through all these because this might take a long time. So let's see, some of the most important things I guess for beginners would be let's see, some of the applications that you might want to be able to find. So if you go to all apps here at the bottom, it's gonna give you all the applications that you have installed, so you can also search those. But more than likely, if you just click here under search, this is where you're going to be doing most of the searching for your app. So let's say we want Excel. So if I just type Excel in here, I'm not even sure. No, I don't think I have it installed. So if you have it, that's all you would have to do. Another thing you can do is, let's say you use applications quite often, like I use my browsers very often. So I have them pinned. So in order to do that, all you would do is you would open up the let's say I'm gonna use Edge as an example here. So you would search for Edge and then click on it. Once it opens, all you would have to do is right click on it and then pin this program to taskbar, and from now on it'll be there. After you close it, it will be there from now on. So now if you click on it, it'll open directly. This is only for applications you're going to be using all the time. So if you're not using them, there's no need for them to be in here. Okay, so if you're used to Windows 7, more than likely you used a lot of the control panel. So the easiest way to get to the control panel is just to type in here control panel, and it'll pop up, and then in here you can just see all this here and be able to mess around with these. So system security, network, internet, hardware and sound, programs, user accounts, appearance, and all that. So these will seem very familiar if you use Windows 7. And of course, the easiest way to be able to access your documents is just to click on this thing here, this little file that I covered earlier, and just go to documents. If it's under something else like downloads, for example, you can just click on that as well, and you'll be able to find music. You got there pictures, videos, and such. And I think that might be the most important things right now. Of course, over here you have these little icons for the network to be for your internet, so you can also open it from here and mess around with this. You also have the sounds here for your volume, for your audio, so you can mess around with these. If you right click on it, you can open the volume mixer and be able to look at some of the devices that are available. And finally, in here, this should be the notifications. So in here, if there's something going on, you can always read in here, see what's going on. If nothing that concerns you, you can just clear them. You can expand these to see all of them in here. So you see you have quite a few. If you click here under note, you get the OneNote. So, and of course you got the clock in here, which is very self-explanatory. You can always change this if it's not right. So that's it. That's the basics for the Windows 10. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make another video later on in more details as far as how to be able to set up VPNs, proxies, and how to create users and things like that, more advanced. So that's it for now. Bye.